really something. At that moment, Rose Chang returned. Zhang Ping told Jimin to keep practicing while he went to check on things. Upstairs, Rose mentioned that she had almost messed up this time and still didn't understand why the number of mutated beasts was decreasing so much. Because of this, they had been forced to hunt up north, where they encountered some storm wolves. Zhang Ping asked if she got out of it okay. She replied that yes, they had used a technique to hide, and the wolves attacked another group, allowing her to grab something valuable, a gem that allowed people to control the wind with their minds. Zhang Ping asked if it was a wind gem, and Rose commented that he really seemed to know everything. With that, even a child could create wind blades. Zhang Ping heard a voice saying that her brother was starting to train. Another voice mentioned the wind blade sword, and yet another said that since Yu Shiwei had died, she would eat 2 more of them. With that, Zhang Ping awakened another talent. But then he heard someone talking about the 2 people inside the shop. He recognized the voices as those of natural order foxes, and they were discussing how the 2 would make a great snack. Zhang Ping wondered if they were planning to invade the shop in broad daylight. Meanwhile, Sizzy was taking a bath, reacting calmly even though Zhang Ping was about to be in serious danger. He questioned whether she would arrive in time, as those foxes could break in at any moment. Rose noticed something was wrong and asked if he had a problem. Zhang Ping turned to her and suggested she visit her uncle now that she had returned, as he was always talking about her upstairs. She agreed and said she would prepare dinner and buy some ingredients. But before leaving, she took the gem with her. Zhang Ping handed it back to her and thanked her for leaving, ensuring she wouldn't get involved in what was about to happen. He then rushed over to Jimin, who was practicing like a fool. He simply told her to be quiet and come with him. Just then, 2 foxes appeared and asked where they thought they were going. Zhang Ping told Jimin to stay away, but she asked what her mom and dad were doing there. She told Zhang Ping they were her relatives, so there was nothing to worry about. However, standing before him were 2 natural order foxes at levels 15 and 16. They asked Jimin who the person next to her was and why he seemed so scared. She explained that he was a friend from the martial arts academy. Suddenly, a dark space began to form around the 2 of them. Both foxes leaped at them, shouting not to let them escape, while Jimin appeared frightened. Zhang Ping told her to forget about them and hold on. The problem was that they seemed to be tracking him. Zhang Ping turned his back to protect her from the attack. The 2 fell to the ground and smoke rose. Jimin asked if he was okay, and he replied that he was. She then asked what her parents were doing, but Zhang Ping warned her not to get closer. They were mutated beasts. The mother fox commented that it seemed he could see through their disguise, and if that was the case, he couldn't be allowed to live. Zhang Ping barely dodged, realizing that his physical strength wasn't keeping up because of the level difference. The real problem was that the mother fox was now heading toward Jimin, who looked too scared to react, while Zhang Ping struggled to free himself from the other fox. Just then, Sizzy arrived and told him to step aside. She unleashed a barrage of ice, piercing one fox and then continuing to hit the other. She jumped to finish them off, but Jimin pleaded with her to stop. However, it was too late. Sizzy showed no mercy. She simply turned and asked if they were okay. Devastated, Jimin asked why her parents had become carpets. Zhang Ping tried to explain that they weren't really her parents. They were just foxes who had taken on their form. The poor girl was distraught, crying that it was impossible. They were clearly her parents. Zhang Ping asked why they had reverted to their true forms. Sizzy explained that if there was a fox above king level in the city, they couldn't be maintaining this kind of illusion. Last time, the foxes reverted to normal because they were killed outside the city. That's when Zhang Ping began to realize he was the only one who could expose the truth. He then told Jimin that these 2 had killed her real parents and assumed their form. When he removed the cover, the true bodies appeared, and he told her that this was the reality. The poor girl broke down in tears, asking how this could be possible. Meanwhile, Lu Xiu, that awful fox, wasn't too happy either. After all, 9 of them had been killed this week. In a meeting, someone suggested that they should just kill everyone and take control of the city. But another person asked if they were going to graze on grass after killing all the humans. Lu Xiu silenced them, warning that wiping out all the humans would be extremely inefficient and a waste of food. Their priority now was to find the people hiding in the shadows and eliminate them. The vice president suggested that if they brought in several strong beasts to attack the city, the powerful humans would be forced to reveal themselves. Everyone knew there were 3 organizations, but no one knew what the third one was. The 2 foxes nearby agreed that it seemed like a good idea. Lu Xiu stood up and gave her approval, but reminded the mayor not to forget that he was still human, warning that if he did anything wrong, he would be dealt with. The idiot mayor punched the air, vowing that he would never go against Her Highness. Back with Jimin, she slowly approached the puddle, looked at what had happened, and cried for her mother and father. She apologized, saying she had never realized the truth. Sizzy, ever so cruel, said that even if Jimin had known, she wouldn't have been able to do anything. Jimin, crying, pleaded with her to go easier, saying that she knew she was weak, unable to learn any martial arts, and that was why she had lost her parents. She lamented that she should have been the one to die. But our romantic protagonist, Zhang Ping, stepped in with a hug, telling her to listen. This wasn't her fault. He had also lost someone important and thought about them every day. Maybe if he had stopped her from joining the city patrol, she would still be alive. But he knew that even if he could go back in time, nothing would change. Joining the patrol had been her dream, and nothing he could have said would have stopped her. Just like Jimin couldn't blame herself for her parents' deaths, she needed to get stronger and protect those she loved in the future. Crying, Jimin thanked Zhang Ping. He was about to say he'd kill the foxes, but suddenly, he coughed up blood on her face. It seemed our boy was more injured than he had let on. Later, he slowly opened his eyes. Jimin, who had already moved past her grief for her parents, thanked him for being alive. He asked how long he'd been unconscious, and Sizzy told him to stay still. Excited, Jimin clung to his arm, saying she wanted to become even stronger. Once she gained more power, she would help him wipe out those foxes. Sizzy then suggested that Jimin stay with Zhang Ping, as her home would no longer be a safe place. Just then, Zhang Ping heard Lu Xiu's voice talking about the king continuing to sleep and about Huan Ziming's place. He told Sizzy that he had a lead on the foxes. He mentioned the vice president, and Sizzy commented that if he was connected, he had clearly betrayed humanity. That king they were talking about could be the one amplifying the illusion for everyone. Since the foxes were out hunting, it was their chance for revenge, and she would need Zhang Ping's help to identify them. Meanwhile, Rose was happily cooking, starving. The scene shifted to the purging squad's base. The girl named Manny complained that Sizzy was always bossing everyone around and making all sorts of demands, while Chen Luo just quietly observed. They entered the meeting room, where another, far more dangerous, person offered Manny a cup of coffee. This base was a dangerous place, if you know what I mean, and it was time for the meeting to start. Her name was Suji, and she initiated the solar recharge. Another person activated the black curtain, and the last one triggered the light and shadow distortion. Together, they created a celestial curtain around the entire city. Meanwhile, Zhang Ping thought that the purging squad was finally starting to trust him. They were the only ones who had a chance to deal with all of this, and they had extremely rare weapons. They also had a secret group for operations like this. The leader had the black curtain ability, which was responsible for creating those non-existent spaces he kept falling into. Suji had the solar recharge ability, which could give a long-lasting buff to allies, and Chen Luwei could turn herself or others completely invisible. Together, their powers allowed them to create the celestial curtain, which lured any creature below king level into the world they had created. Since the foxes like to use illusions to kill people, they were going to play the same game. We saw two girls walking through the city, talking about killing humans. One of them suggested they could capture the humans and take them back. The other commented that the city had been chaotic lately, and her friend asked if she was scared. Suddenly, the second girl stopped, and the one with purple hair asked if she didn't feel something strange approaching. The first girl was about to brush it off as paranoia until she also felt something and wondered where all the humans who had been around them a second ago had gone. At that moment, someone approached with a fist aimed right at the back of their necks. A small explosion echoed through the street, and the person remarked that it was a shame they hadn't been able to take them out in one punch. The girls realized that this was the person who had been killing foxes in the city and called him bold. It was Liu Bo who thanked them for the compliment. He was a level 32, and Zhang Ping had warned him that these two were level 25s, so he was confident. Both girls lunged at him, but he easily dodged one of their strikes. However, something strange happened. He seemed to take damage, even though he had blocked the attack. One of the girls leaped toward him, saying he was nothing but food. Liu Bo found it strange that even though he had blocked the attack, he was still taking damage. The girls kept striking him, taunting him, asking if that was all he was capable of. They found it ridiculous that their friends had been killed by someone so weak, but then one of them took a slap to the face with Liu Bo, saying that now she knew why. Her friend jumped in, shouting that he would pay for that. However, up close, Liu Bo said he could see it now. He had been defending against their human forms, but needed to remember that he was fighting foxes. It was difficult, but now he understood their true size. They were indeed strong when it came to sneak attacks, but in a real fight, they were nothing. Agonizing, the friend asked the other for help, but Liu Bo just smiled and asked if she was feeling nostalgic. With that, he slammed her friend right into her chest. As they were reeling from the blow, Liu Bo appeared behind them, warning that another strike was coming to finish them off. He delivered a crushing heel kick, driving them into the ground. Writhing in pain, the two foxes wondered why they couldn't sense the rest of their race. Liu Bo told them to stop overthinking it. This was the end. He unleashed an electric explosion, finishing them off completely. From afar, Zhang Ping observed and remarked that Liu Bo was indeed strong. Sissy replied that of course he was. After all, he was the leader of their division. But Zhang Ping couldn't help but comment that Liu Bo's outfit looked like something straight out of a Super Saiyan. Stizzy received a notification that multiple beasts were invading the city, and if too many creatures got through, the celestial curtain would overload. She told Zhang Ping that they would have to deal with the other creatures, and she would send someone to watch over the blacksmith shop. Zhang Ping asked who she had been talking to on the phone, and Stizzy explained that it was a big boss, whom he would meet one day. Stizzy broke down the power levels. Low-level creatures were between level 1 and 10, and Zhang Ping was currently level 4. Mid-tier levels were below 20, where most foxes resided. Apex creatures like Jinbo at level 32 were at the highest level before reaching the king rank, which was level 40 or higher, a level where some foxes operated. As they walked outside the city, Zhang Ping realized it had been a long time since he had been in a place like this. He asked what kind of plants were growing around them. Suddenly, Suzy grabbed his arm as one of the plants released electricity. A green bubble floated up and exploded, spraying liquid everywhere. Stacey warned him to be careful. It was actually acid. She pointed to a rabbit and told Zhang Ping that it would be his challenge while she checked the surroundings. Zhang Ping analyzed the rabbit and saw that it was level 9. Even though it looked harmless, he knew he couldn't let his guard down and had to finish it quickly. He attacked with his dagger, knowing that the first strike was the most important. However, the rabbit didn't even try to dodge. Zhang Ping quickly followed up with a pearl fist, but the rabbit released poison from its ears. Zhang Ping realized he was still quite useless. The rabbit hopped around, activating poison traps from various plants. Zhang Ping commanded his body to dodge while trying to figure out what was happening. Clearly, the rabbit had insane reflexes, and his sneaky attack had been useless. Worse, a creature was luring him into an area filled with acid. The rabbit was fast and intelligent. This wasn't going to be easy. Zhang Ping noticed something strange. The acid wasn't burning him. Maybe the fire in his body was evaporating the acid on contact. The rabbit launched another series of attacks, but Zhang Ping responded with a barrage of flames, easily blocking the assault. Since the acid was liquid, the fire evaporated it instantly. Zhang Ping understood why Suzy had assigned him this task. Despite how dangerous these creatures were, he had a clear advantage. The rabbit lunged, puzzled as to why Zhang Ping wasn't being consumed by the acid. Zhang Ping tried to defend himself but had trouble understanding the creature's movements. Worse, the rabbit's claws were also coated in acid. The creature had realized that long-range attacks wouldn't work, so it had come in close. Zhang Ping now had to envelop his body in flames to burn the acid from its claws. However, his flame reserves were limited. He charged at the rabbit, asking if it thought it was the only one with tricks. Zhang Ping tried a series of strikes, but the rabbit dodged. Finally, they were face to face, and Zhang Ping said there was no escape now. He had trapped the rabbit in a fire tornado. The problem was that he only had 3 flame reserves left. He stabbed at the rabbit, but it dodged and his reserves hit 0. However, that was exactly what Zhang Ping wanted. He began walking through the flames he had created, absorbing the fire and partially refilling his reserves. He coated his dagger in flames and struck the rabbit square in the back. The creature fell dead, but Zhang Ping realized that without matching its level, he probably still needed to finish it off, and so he did it with a lot of determination. As a result, all his stats increased by 2 points, which was strange since he hadn't leveled up. The system explained that each level up became harder, so sometimes, when training or defeating enemies, he would only gain stat boosts. Zhang Ping, still at level 4, lamented how hard it was to level up. Poor guy. But then he heard a strange sound behind him, a legion of not-so-happy rabbits. Worse, Zhang Ping only had 2 flame reserves left, and there were far more rabbits than he could handle, including some huge muscular ones. He muttered that at least it was enough to activate the pendant and started running in desperation, calling for Sister Suzy to help. But the rabbits were smart. They cut off his escape route. The area behind him was packed, and the rabbits were clearly coordinating their attacks. A barrage of poison was heading his way, and Zhang Ping had no way to dodge. But suddenly, an ice barrier rose up, saving him. He knew who it was. Sister Suzy had arrived to save the day. She warned him that these bullet rabbits were in berserker mode, so she would have to take care of them, already preparing to send a wave of attacks in their direction. With that, the fools were all chased out of the forest, drenched and defeated. Now they looked cute, didn't they? But they were still damned creatures. Zhang Ping couldn't help but think, these cursed things only look adorable after they're dead. Suzy, ever so cruel, snapped her fingers and everything turned to ice. The entire wave of creatures became frozen pillars. Sissy remarked that she'd only been gone for a minute, so how did this many creatures show up? Zhang Ping, of course, said he had no idea. She responded that the worst part was that this didn't seem to be the end. Another legion was coming their way. But instead of attacking, these creatures were headbutting one of their own that was trapped in the ice. They didn't even care that a girl was preparing a sword. It was as if they were all fixated on completing a single objective. However, Suzy wasn't about to help them, and even though the creatures looked cute after death, she showed no mercy and finished them off. Since the whole pack was focused on the one in the middle, Suzy knew there had to be something inside its body. She reached out and commanded it to release. The ice shattered along with the creature, and inside they found a spiritual control pill. Zhang Ping asked what it was, mentioning that it smelled nice. Sissy explained that some organizations used it to control mutated beasts. Usually, this was done by the Zhu clan of tamers. It seemed that after all this time, they were finally making a move. The pill emitted a strong scent that only mid-tier beasts could sense. It made them crave the pill, and once they consumed it, they lost control and became mindless. However, the Zhu clan somehow had the ability to control these creatures, which was still a mystery. Sissy crushed the pill, explaining that if it weren't destroyed, another beast might consume it. But it was clear that there was a connection between these beasts and the pill, and they would have to investigate whether the Zhu clan was responsible. Before that, though, they would continue training just outside the wall. What they didn't know was that a hooded figure had been eavesdropping on their conversation. Zhang Ping had a feeling, though, that Sizzy already had her blade ready. Her attack sliced through a tree, but the intruder had already vanished. Zhang Ping asked why she'd done that out of nowhere. Sissy told him to forget it, questioning whether she was imagining things. A week passed, and all the foxes from the blacksmith area had gathered. The dangerous Luz and Yuki were among them, but of course they were just horrid foxes in disguise. Beast attacks were becoming more frequent, and they wondered if it was Ziming's doing. Still, Luz wasn't going to rely on him, as it was time for her to make her own move. She told the others that, as many of them knew, humans had discovered a way to break free from mental control. Most of the foxes had disappeared from the blacksmith region, so everyone would head there. Their plan was to spread chaos and make it look like they were acting impulsively. That way, Luz could observe who would appear, allowing them to eliminate all threats. Meanwhile, back in the forest, the dumb bullet rabbits were still standing around. Zhang Ping sneaked up behind them. Since it was nighttime, he had his evasion ability active, allowing him to strike without mercy. For the past week, he'd been hunting these cursed rabbits and had reached level 6. Additionally, he had become familiar with all their attack patterns. First, he easily neutralized their long-range attacks using his flames. Typically, they would cover themselves in steel and try to attack or escape. Since the acid they used was flammable, it made it even easier to eliminate the ones covered in steel. He had also been using the scarlet scales to recover his energy, so the flames he used never ran out. This was the technique he called Flame Devourer, or maybe not, because even he thought that name was a bit cringe. The problem was that he had already used up all the snake scales he'd collected, but with so many kills, it should be enough to level up again. Finally, Zhang Ping reached level 7 and he was thrilled. His contract gem advanced to level 5 as well. He had thought the gem was connected to his level, but unfortunately, from levels 4 to 6, he hadn't gained any new abilities. He was eager to find out what power he would gain this time and really hoped it would be something combat-related. But just then, one of the rabbits changed expression. It took on a dark form and a purple aura began to emanate from it. Zhang Ping was confused. After all, that rabbit was supposed to be dead. But since it wasn't, he decided to use his last flame reserve to finish it off. He laughed, saying it seemed like the rabbit liked coming straight at him. But when he went to stab the creature, it caught his hand and dodged the attack. Zhang Ping realized it might be a spiritual creature and wondered if it was the avenger of the rabbits. Not that it mattered to him. He swung his blade, commanding it to die. The creature collapsed, shriveled and weak on the ground. Zhang Ping wondered since when these cursed rabbits had such a technique and started searching for a spiritual control pill. Instead, he found a strange purple object, but had no idea what it was. He tried several analysis attempts, all of which failed. He kept trying until finally the analysis worked. It was revealed to be nether essence, which came from the testicle of a black goat. Once again, Zhang Ping forced the analysis to try and see a memory of the item. Finally, he glimpsed the black goat fighting a horde of creatures. The beast went 1 on 30, and it easily started decimating all the creatures, or so it seemed. Suddenly, one of the creatures landed a bite on it, and it appeared that both of them had died. Zhang Ping felt that the orb had some kind of effect, but he didn't know how to activate it. Besides, the place it came from was pretty disgusting. He muttered to himself that he was an insignificant, useless insect who didn't have the luxury of choice. Harsh on himself, but he consumed the orb anyway. Immediately, he felt a shock, screaming as he couldn't understand what was happening. Suddenly, he remembered the moment when he hugged Jingyao and how she had turned into a fox soon after. She had told him that no matter what he encountered in the future, he needed to survive. Zhang Ping reassured her in his mind that he wouldn't die, not until he killed all those damn foxes. With that, he gained the nether body, which allowed him to convert the fear of others into nether energy. Each percentage of fear generated a manifestation that represented 10% of his current attack power. With fully recharged energy, he could unleash an attack with 1000% power. It was a perfect ability, both offensively and defensively. The most impressive part was that his growth potential increased by 3 stars because of this. Clearly, the nether body was more powerful than he had anticipated. But suddenly, Zhang Ping started crying, and even he didn't understand why. He couldn't tell if it was sadness, joy, or regret, but he swore he would avenge Jingyao soon. At that moment, a group of men carrying some things approached him. One of them asked if the kid was okay, but the other told him to leave Zhang Ping alone, as it wasn't their problem. Zhang Ping slowly stood up, his Hour of Darkness ability active, and said he was fine. However, the men ran off in a panic, which only fueled Zhang Ping's nether energy. It seemed like he was going to have to cause a little mischief in this world. The most interesting part was that the nether energy could form any shape he wanted. Curious about its strength, he swung to strike toward a tree. Even a blade created from just 1 point of nether energy sliced through the tree like paper. He then slashed through the falling trunk, cutting it into neat cubes like something out of Minecraft. He created a small shield that cost 10 nether energy points and easily blocked everything. This was going to be his trump card against high-level beasts. Suddenly, Sizzy appeared behind him, shouting for him. She approached, readying an attack, and asked if he'd seen the nether beast that had been detected nearby. Zhang Ping, feeling awkward, realized he'd have to explain what had happened. Sizzy asked what the deal was with him eating the nether essence, accusing him of having a death wish for consuming something so dangerous without knowing what it was. Of course, Zhang Ping explained that he had done it because his analysis hadn't indicated any danger. He said he had been calm about it, as if anything had gone wrong, he could have ordered his body to vomit it out. Stizzy, however, questioned what he would have done if that hadn't been possible, if the item had been a parasite that took control of his body. Startled, Zhang Ping asked if something like that had happened before. Sissy explained that nether creatures were completely unknown entities. They didn't have a specific form and usually hid inside other creatures. When the hubus died, they condensed into an organ, and when another animal consumed it, they took control. The point was that nether creatures specialize in infecting those who consume them. Zhang Ping realized he had made a stupid mistake. The intense pain he had felt when he consumed the essence was likely the creature trying to take control of his body. However, since he felt fine, maybe that meant the creature had failed. Stizzy said that because Zhang Ping had absolute control over himself, the beast hadn't been able to steal his body. Still, she warned him that if he showed any signs of mutation, she'd have to cut him down. Zhang Ping apologized, and just then, a spider descended between the two of them, shouting surprise at Stizzy. Embarrassed, Stizzy tried to swing her sword at the creature but missed, and it scuttled away. Zhang Ping noticed that Stizzy was terrified of it, and she clung to him all flustered. He thought to himself that she still had the same fear of insects she had when they were kids. He remembered a time when he ran over to her, proudly showing her a beetle the size of her head. He admitted that even he would have been scared of that thing. But Stizzy had swatted it away, making it run off, and Zhang Ping was sad, saying he had wanted to be friends with it. Stizzy asked why he wanted a beetle as a friend when there were so many people at the orphanage who could be his friends. He replied that he knew that, but eventually all those people would leave and he'd end up alone. But Stizzy hugged him and said that no matter what happened, they would always be friends. Of course, she had made that promise, but had abandoned him later and nearly killed him. Yet he forgave her. What a surprise. Now, however, he found himself in an awkward position as she leaned in for a hug, asking why he was squeezing her so tightly. Stizzy told him that he had been lucky this time, but it was important for him to remember that the world was full of dangerous things. From now on, he couldn't rely on luck alone. Zhang Ping thought that even though Stizzy seemed so cold after joining the squad, she was always concerned about him, even if she didn't always show it. She received a message and said, "Understood." Zhang Ping asked what was going on. She explained that his training and investigation would be paused for now because they needed to return to Pearl City. It seemed that Liu Bo had been injured, and they needed to go back to offer support. Zhang Ping was shocked that someone as strong as Liu Bo had been hurt and asked why they didn't call the other groups for help. Sissy explained that they couldn't alert anyone to their presence, and besides, things outside the wall were a mess. On the way back, it was explained that when the cataclysm began, they erected walls to protect what little was left. Because of this, traveling beyond the wall was extremely dangerous, and only a few independent awakened ones had the courage to do so. There were a few villages around Pearl City that hadn't yet been taken over by creatures. At sea, there were numerous apex-level creatures, and no one had any idea what was on the other side. When they arrived at the base, someone explained that they had been using the celestial curtain to monitor the foxes when suddenly, many of them appeared on Blacksmith Street, so they went there to resolve it. But it turned out to be a trap. Jinbo had been injured and was still recovering, so for the time being, Stizzy would have to take responsibility and ensure the city's safety. Humbly, Zhang Ping asked if she needed help. Stizzy humbly declined, telling him to return to the blacksmith shop and that she'd send him a message if anything came up. With that, the two parted ways and Zhang Ping wished them well. Finally, he was able to relax a little after so many days of training outside the city. He was curious to see how Jimin's training had been going, but then he noticed something strange. The people in the city seemed frozen in place. Someone approached and called out to him. Zhang Ping used his analysis ability, which failed 66 times, but eventually succeeded. However, he could only tell that the man was using an identity-hiding ability. The man commented that it seemed Zhang Ping could see the people, and that right now, he must be trying to analyze his abilities. He congratulated Zhang Ping, saying that normally an analysis-type awakened could only use their ability 10 times, but here, he was with no limitations. Zhang Ping was shocked at how this man could tell he was trying to analyze him and asked if he needed help with anything. Despite his fear, the man exuded an incredibly terrifying aura. Zhang Ping stood his ground. The old man asked if he wanted to have some fun. Zhang Ping did nothing, and the man asked why he wasn't starting. Zhang Ping responded that there was no reason to fight him, but the man questioned whether he had no reason to become stronger or if his quest for vengeance in South Nile was just a lie. Instantly, Zhang Ping was in his face, demanding he repeat himself. But strangely, reality seemed to shatter around him. The man teleported, and Zhang Ping thought he was behind him. As he turned, the man blocked his punch and said that Zhang Ping still had a lot to learn. Zhang Ping replied that they'd find out soon enough and unleashed a flame right at the man's face. However, the fire passed through, causing no damage at all. The man reappeared in the distance, saying that he had had his fun and now it was his turn. What Zhang Ping had hit was just a false image, and the man unleashed a slash. Zhang Ping was barraged with ice attacks and wondered how this lunatic had so many abilities. He began using a bit of his nether reserve to dodge, and when he couldn't, he pulled up his shield to defend himself. All of this was just to get the man to lower his guard. He sacrificed his shield and launched an attack in the man's direction. As the shield blocked the man's vision, Zhang Ping came from the side to land a finishing blow. The old man said Zhang Ping was clever, but he wasn't strong enough. He emitted a light that pushed Zhang Ping back, sending him crashing to the ground like a fool. The old man remarked that it was impressive for someone at Zhang Ping's level to have so much power. Zhang Ping realized he was pinned to the ground by some kind of telekinetic pressure and couldn't move. The old man said it looked like they would need to have a conversation. Zhang Ping immediately realized this man was far above Jinbo or even Sizzy. The only person with more power that he'd ever heard of was the captain of the purging squad. Zhang Ping, trying to be clever, asked how he could refer to that person. The old man said Zhang Ping could call him whatever he wanted and questioned if he really didn't know who he was. Considering the man had information about Jing Yao, Zhang Ping guessed he must be from the purging squad. He knew the captain's name was Sidu Shibai, but wondered why the captain would reveal himself to him. Zhang Ping asked why the man was there. The old man warned him not to think too hard about it, especially since he couldn't block a mind reading. He explained that in the 2 years he had been in Pearl City, he had never seen an awakened one with an unlimited type ability. Of course, that had piqued his curiosity. Zhang Ping asked if such a thing as an unlimited level truly existed, as he had thought Apex was the highest level. Shibai explained that normal awakened individuals could only have a single ability, no matter how strong they became. However, unlimited users could continuously gain new abilities as they grew stronger, and there was something he was extremely curious about. Could his unlimited level ability, called Path of Others, copy Zhang Ping's contract gem ability? Of course, he wasn't asking for this test for free. Zhang Ping would be rewarded, even if it didn't work. Zhang Ping wanted to know what would happen if he refused to test this. Shibai said that was his decision, but he should take a look at the gift first. It was a bracelet called Golden Treasure, which had the storage ability that Shibai had used long ago. He added that Zhang Ping should know what that meant. Zhang Ping was excited. A storage ability was perfect for someone like him, who had abilities that consumed items. The old man then told him to raise his hand, and a strange blue energy began to flow. Shibai looked thoughtful and sighed. Zhang Ping asked if he was finished, and the man replied that he was. Unfortunately, Shibai couldn't copy Zhang Ping's contract gem ability, nor could he copy any abilities that Zhang Ping had stolen, which meant that the boy was truly unique. Despite this outcome, the item was now Zhang Ping's. However, as soon as Zhang Ping took the bracelet, he felt something strange. His analysis revealed how the item had been created. A girl with magical powers had been bound in ropes, and golden liquid had been poured over her. The lives of humans and awakened ones were used to create items like this. Zhang Ping asked Shibai if all items like this were created in such a cruel way. Shibai explained that in the 2 centuries he lived, many items had been created like this, even though it was strictly prohibited. He had tried several times to destroy the item, but perhaps Zhang Ping could make better use of it. Zhang Ping then asked what the city had been like 200 years ago and if lives had always been wasted in this way. Shibai nodded, explaining that 200 years ago, the Zhu Beast family ruled the city and everyone was a slave to their desires. Men worked all day just to have something to eat. Beautiful women were turned into toys for the masters. Those with any potential were brainwashed into becoming tools. Anyone who lost their usefulness was fed to the Zhu family's creatures, and awakened ones with rare abilities were turned into ingredients for certain equipment. After the Zhu family committed so many atrocities, a revolution began. After years of fighting, the Zhu family was finally overthrown. Zhang Ping acknowledged this history, and Shibai asked if he wanted to know more. Zhang Ping asked why, if Shibai was so strong, he didn't just go and take out the fox leader by himself. Before answering, Shibai shielded their conversation from the world. He explained that it wasn't that he didn't want to, it was that he couldn't. Zhang Ping might think the city's defenses were weak since they had been invaded by the foxes, but in truth, Pearl City's defenses were incredibly robust. The patrol and investigation teams could easily detect any beast that approached the city. Once the signal was given, the purging squad was always ready and dealt with any of the beasts. Additionally, the city had an artifact called the Pearl of the Sun and Moon, which capped the power of any creature within the city at level 40. So even if a king-level creature invaded, it would only have the power of an apex level. No doubt about it, Shibai was the strongest apex-level being. The problem was that even though they knew who the enemy was, they didn't know who was pulling the strings behind everything. Zhang Ping questioned whether Shibai was suggesting that there was a traitor among them. Shibai explained that the city's lord had gone missing, and aside from him, only a few people had control of the artifact. There were remnants of the Zhu family lurking in the shadows, angry at the loss of their reign. These remnants could deactivate the Pearl of the Sun and Moon and had opened the gates to allow the celestial foxes to enter. It was clear that they were behind everything. Zhang Ping asked why they didn't just wipe out these fools. Shibai explained that they had been trying to eradicate them for over 100 years, but a new seed always sprouted. Likely the Zhu family had been entrenched in the city for so long that they had many hidden connections that the purging squad didn't know about. Zhang Ping realized that this was why the fox invasion never made sense. What was the true goal of the Zhu family? Was the Lord dead or alive? And why had the beasts recently started to stir more frequently? That's why Shabab was being so cautious, because if he were to die, the city would lose its greatest weapon. Worse still, if he were captured and controlled, it would be the end of Pearl City. Sitter Shibai then reiterated that while he couldn't copy Zhang Ping's ability, they still needed him. He asked Zhang Ping if he was willing to join the purging squad. Without hesitation, Zhang Ping shook his hand and said, "Of course I am." Meanwhile, at the Soul Iron Forge, Jimin asks Rose why she's been repairing so much equipment lately. She says she's just trying to make the best use of her free time. Then Jimin asks when Zhang Ping is coming back since it's been a few days since he left. Rose says it must be all the missing that's making her so distracted. She replies that it's not that, it's just that during the day she has no one to help her train. And she keeps wondering how he's doing outside the wall and if he's encountered any danger. Rose says that kind of talk is identical to a wife's. It seems she can't go a day without a boy. She turns to the barrel and says she'll stop teasing her. But she warns that she doesn't need to worry because the creatures outside the wall are all marked. So as long as he stays in the right regions, he'll be safe. Jimin then questions if there are other villages outside Pearl City capable of doing that. Rose says yes, there are a few, but they are very backward and xenophobic. Most of them still worship bestial gods and make sacrifices to them. So if you ever come across one, it's best to flee. Jimin asks if they are human, and if so, couldn't they just communicate with them? However, Rose warns her to be cautious with that thought, saying they are actually much more dangerous than the beasts when it comes to the outside world. Some of them wear terrifying masks, and you never see them coming. At that moment, Jimin asks if it's like that thing showing up behind them. Rose says yes, it really is quite similar to that one. That's when she notices the thing is really there. And our guy shows up like a fool, scaring the poor girls. But Rose doesn't forgive and gives him a good kick in the groin. Well, boy, your little plan fell apart. A few moments later, our boy decides to pretend nothing happened and tells Miss Rose that was a bit cruel, but she wants to know who he is. Our girl removes the mask, revealing it's him. The two of them want to scold this rascal for playing around and scaring them, but then he teases her hair, saying he's a rascal for going away and coming back